Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation. The MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
Embark on an extraordinary journey across the United States on a tandem bicycle with 10 little rules for a double-butted adventure. This heartwarming and insightful book explores the highs and lows of adventure cycling, unforgettable moments, and self-discovery after divorce as author Teri M navigates winding roads and unexpected detours. Filled with powerful, deeply personal antidotes, the unexpected challenges of the open road, and cherished connections with those she met while riding 10.4 miles per hour. This book is not just a travel memoir. It's a personal story of healing through adventure, overcoming personal challenges, and personal growth, complete with a guided journaling experience designed to help you reclaim your own power and take on life's challenges with renewed vigor. Get ready to laugh, cry, and be inspired as you pedal through life's twists and turns with resilience, camaraderie, wisdom, and a healthy dose of humor that will inspire you to create your own rules for a truly adventurous life. Rule number 1, open your mind. Rule number 2, expect setbacks. Rule number 3, do hard things. Rule number 4, enjoy the downhills. Rule number 5, focus on now. Rule number 6, define your success. Rule number 7, set aside fear. Rule number 8, know your why. Rule number 9, never quit on a bad day. Rule number 10, continue to dream. Purchase your copy wherever fine books are sold.
All right. We are back. We are live in Indiana. I know some of you were worried about me on Thursday. I got real sick Thursday right before the show. Thank you, Jake, for jumping in, and Cagney and Lacey, they took it over. Cagney ran the board. Lacey ran the show. It's good to have both of them available at the same time and able to do it at a moment's notice. I don't know what happened to me, but it was horrible. And I'm back. I'm bad. I'm here. I'm in Indiana, at my timeshare in Indiana with Jake, of course, and we're doing good things up here, doing our day job. So tonight we have a great guest, one you've all seen before 3 times. We had her on for her first show, her first book, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, her second book, An Enemy Like Me, and her third book, Daughters of the Green Mountain Gap. And now this one I've been waiting for since the first time she told me about this adventure. And now her book came out on Valentine's Day, and it's called 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure. So without further ado, let's bring in Teri M. Brown. Welcome, Teri.
Hey, Rich, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing? It's great to have you back.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited for this book to be out as well.
I know when I seen the release date, Valentine's Day, I said, that's an awesome day. And I said, I can't wait. I'm glad I'm the first show after, or at least one of the first shows right after the release. So It's great to have you as part of the MisFitNation family. You helped us with our gratitude journal in November. I think you were one of the first people that jumped in and said, I want to do this. And you left a heartfelt gratitude on there. And that was amazing. Thank you for that. And thank you for always coming back.
Well, I love being here, and I'm so grateful that you keep inviting me back. This is great.
I will not stop letting you come back until you stop writing your book. So you'll be here.
That's not going to happen. So this is going to be a relationship that keeps on going, Rich.
It's an annual event. Maybe I'll let the other team pick up on you and let them interview you once or twice. But your family here at the MisFitNation, and you're always welcome. So Teri, it's been about a year since you were on. So if you don't mind, just tell the audience a little backstory of you, and then a little bit about what you've been working on in the last year. And then, of course, let's dive into the 10 rules for a double-butted adventure.
All right. So I tell everyone that I'm kind of a late start writer. I didn't start writing until I was in my mid-50s, although I think I've always known that I wanted to be an author. As a child, that's what I said. But life gets in the way, and you go about doing other things. And I was married, and then I got divorced, and I was married, and I got divorced. And it's been a crazy thing. And that second marriage that I was in was emotionally abusive, and I was kind of trapped in that marriage. I didn't know how to get out of it. And I wanted to write, but you can't write when you're in a relationship like that, because you don't have a safe place to land, and putting yourself out there to the public with your books and your characters, it's really scary. So I got out of that relationship in 2017, and the words started like falling out of me. And I started writing, but I was still terrified to let anyone see what I was doing and really get to know that I was an author, because you don't get out of an emotionally abusive relationship and come out of it unscathed. So I had a lot of just junk that I had to work through. About a year after I got out of that bad relationship, I met my now husband, Bruce. Bruce, he tells everyone he chased me until I caught him. That's the way he put it. He chased me until I caught him, which really means that he just never went away. He just kept being there until I finally got used to his presence. And while we were dating, he said to me, I've always wanted to ride across the United States on a bicycle. He saw some college kids do it in 1976, and he was in the military. It's not like he could take the time off, but he thought that was the coolest thing ever. He's always been a cyclist. And so this has been like on his mind. He spent 25 years in the military, so he couldn't do it then. And then he gets out, and of course he still has career to do, and life kept going. And I wanted an adventure. I wanted to do something big and bold to prove to the world that I still had some value. Little did I know, no one else worried about it. I was the one that needed the proof, but that's the way that worked. So I said to him, is this something you're going to talk about until the day you die, or are you going to actually do it? He said, no, I want to do it. And I said, count me in. And we weren't married. I didn't plan to marry him. I just figured that we could go on this adventure and then, part ways or whatever. Turns out we got married and then went on the adventure. And we went across the United States on a tandem bicycle. We went from Astoria, Oregon to Washington, D.C., 3,102 miles. I know where the 2 miles is. So I make that 2 in there so that everyone knows. And at the very end of the trip, so we decided to stop at the Marine Corps Memorial in Washington, D.C., because my husband is a Marine, and we were raising money for Toys for Tots. So it seemed like the perfect place to stop. We were coming up this little hill around a corner, and he said, "Teri, do you see that flag?" Yeah. He said, "That's it." And I started to laugh, and then I started to cry, and then I laughed some more and I cried some more. I was just a big emotional mess. But what I realized was I had just made it across the United States on a tandem bicycle. I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years prior to meeting Bruce. And me, a desk jockey, not someone who is athletic, not someone who does these big things, had just made it the whole way across. I could do anything I put my mind to. It was no longer a matter of, can I do something? It was a matter of, what do I want to do? And I wanted to be an author. And 14 months later, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow came out. So that's kind of my story. I mean, that's how we got to where I am now. So
That is awesome. And I know your husband had some health issues. I'm glad he's on the other side of that now as well. And hoorah for him being a Marine. Hopefully he gets a good box of crayons from you for Christmas. Hopefully, I don't know what his favorite color is, but let's make sure you get the right one.
So Rich, I'm not sure that you're aware. He passed away in January.
No, did not.
No,
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So he ended up with glioblastoma. They are pretty confident that it was from being at Camp Lejeune.
Yep.
And so we're part of that lawsuit thing and everything else. When he was diagnosed in June of 2022, we were told he would have about 8 months. He lived for 31 because Marines don't give up.
No.
And he did not give up. He just recognized that the fight was over. His body could not do it anymore. He had been on chemo for 28 months. It was just too much, too long, too hard. So he stopped the chemo in November, and I asked him if he wouldn't try to have as best quality of life as he could, get us through Christmas. We would get back to Duke, see how things went. We got back to Duke on a Monday, and he died on a Friday. So he did exactly what he told me he would do. He was a man that never broke his promises. He promised me that he would make it back to Duke, and he did. And once we got back to Duke, he knew he was done. It was it. So
Well, rest easy.
Thank
Thoughts and prayers are for you, of course.
Thank you.
As I know that's a hard fight for that long, especially.
It is.
And
It is.
You just being basically the cheerleader. There's not much you can really do at that point.
No, I mean, I did a lot in terms of trying to make sure that his life was as easy as you could make it, that he could do as much as he could do as long as he could do it. But yeah, when you know it's an incurable brain cancer, there are a few people who somehow manage to make it through. But at the 5-year mark, there's only 3% of people who've been diagnosed who are still alive. Those are terrible odds.
Wow.
And so, we kind of knew that from the beginning. But the best gift that I've been given is that this book was already scheduled to come out on February the 14th.
Right.
And the end of a cancer journey is never pretty. And there's a lot of memories that you don't want that are kind of top of mind because it's what you've been living. And then I started coming on podcasts and talking about my book with people. And now the wonderful memories of this amazing trip that we took is what's now top of mind. So I feel very blessed that I have this opportunity to, keep talking about what he and I did together.
Definitely. That's what I was going to say. And this book comes to have more meaning now, not just to share your journey to 3,000 miles across the country to the Iwo Jima Memorial, but now it's something that you'll have forever. It's almost like I have a coffee table book now to remind me of Bruce for the rest of my life. And now you're sharing that life with the world. And thank you.
It feels really good to be able to do that, in fact, the cover is a picture of he and I that was then kind of pixelated and turned into a watercolory looking image. And I really hesitated doing that because it seemed a little vain. Not for him, but for me. I kept thinking, God, I'm going to put myself on the cover of a book. Doesn't that seem vain? And the more I thought about it, it was like, even if I don't belong on that cover, he sure does, Yes. And so I just decided we were going to do it. And now, oh my gosh, am I glad that we went with this instead of just this. We had kind of looked at like a cartooned image of of a tandem bicycle going up a hill, and it just wouldn't have had the same oomph that this does. So I'm just so glad that we went this way.
I think the cover came out awesome, and it looks like almost like a portrait hanging in the house.
Yeah.
Or you ever had that portrait somewhere that's digitized somewhere. It's good that you had all those memories to take those snaps along the way, like the one picture in the video of you guys on the beach.
Yeah.
On the beach with the bike. And I know if me and my wife rode on a tandem bike anywhere, we'd be arguing the whole way, who's pedaling more, who's doing this, who's doing that. And that's why I told her we can never go on an Amazing Race, because we'd probably kill each other on anything like that. So I'm glad
a lot of people call a tandem bicycle a divorce machine because you either can do it or you cannot. You know, and for Bruce and I, we believe that what it actually did was it took us 3 months to get across the United States. It was 72 riding days, but you have to take some rest days. And so we're gone for this 3-month period of time where we're doing everything together. We ride together, we set up the tent together, we fix our meals together, we shop together. Everything we do is together. We're never more than 3 feet apart. And we say that in that 3 months that we got 20 years of marriage.
Yeah.
And so we call it tandem time. And in real life, we were married almost 6 years. And in tandem time, we were married for 26.
Definitely. And you made it through. That's a long ride. And just as newlyweds too. So it's an awesome ride to get through and really get to know each other.
Well, and we figured out how to work out all those pesky problems that you have, you know, the ones that you normally shove under the rug, and it takes you 10 years to finally figure out how to get over fighting. Well, we figured it out right away, because there is nothing worse than riding a tandem bicycle angry.
Definitely. I guarantee it's horrible.
So we did it for a portion of one day, and then figured that we'd never do that again. And then we slept one night in a tent angry at one another. And the next day was miserable because we were both exhausted from having tried to be really still on our side without touching each other all night. You know what I'm talking about, where you're on your side and you're pretending that you're asleep, but you're not. Yeah. I was so cold that night that I finally scooted backward and my back went up against his. And I said, "This doesn't mean anything." Just letting him know that's like, it's just cold. It has nothing to do with anything else. But yeah.
That's an awesome story. So that's another story you have from that trip. That's something that you're going to have forever. Did he help you with the naming of the rules, the 10 rules? Was he part of that, or was just all your thoughts on that?
These were more my thoughts. He always told everybody that he was the engineer and I was the creative one. You know, he went out. He's the one. I could have never made it across the United States without him. I didn't know how to change a bike tire. I didn't know how. We often were having problems with different mechanical things, and he would get in there and all the tools, and he'd know what he was doing. I just stood around and said, "Good job." You know, I don't know what I'm doing at all, but I did keep a blog the whole way. And my blog was very honest, because I had read a lot of blogs of people who rode across the United States, not on a tandem, that's harder to find, but on a bicycle. And I think they're all liars, because they would only talk about the wonderful things. And very rarely did they talk about real issues. And I thought, it can't have been that easy. So I said exactly what was going on. So as you go through, if you go and looked at that blog, which is on my website, you can read every single day. That's not what this book is, but you can read every single day, and it will tell you what the weather was and what the wind was like and what we ate that day and how many miles we went and all of it, how many times I cried, all of the things. I mean, I was just as honest as could be. And that's kind of where I pulled these things from, is as I was reading that over again, it was like, I learned a lot about myself and about life and about people. And I just felt like I want to share that. I want to put that out into the world and say, hey, this is what I learned. So it's about my adventure, but it's for anybody who's trying to live a more adventurous life. And that doesn't mean a bicycle ride. It could mean moving to a new state, or changing jobs, or figuring out what you're going to do as an empty nest mom, or getting into a new relationship, or realizing it's time to get out of one, or anything that takes you kind of outside of your comfort zone. that's what these rules are supposed to do, is to help you kind of navigate some of that and figure out, how to make that work. And then what I also did is at the end of every chapter, I ask questions and I give you guided journaling questions and a space to write your answers.
Nice.
Because these are my rules. They're not necessarily yours. Like if my rules work for you, great, but maybe they don't. And maybe one of my questions will spark your imagination and you'll now know a new rule that you need to follow to help you be more adventurous.
Definitely. And that was my mindset going into my book, The 13-Step Guide to Success, is to give you a guideline to maybe be a better person, but you can tweak any one of them
Right.
to you, because I'm not you. Just like you said, you're not them, but you can give that tweak to get them going the right direction.
Right. I'm not an expert. I'm only an expert at what I did in my shoes with me. Like that's what I'm an expert at. So what I can do is say, hey, here's some rules that really work for me, some things I learned, some lessons. And maybe you only need 7. You don't need 10. Maybe you need 14 and you have another 4 to add. Maybe you need 10, but they're completely different than mine. But I'm hoping that what this book will do is kind of spark the imagination and get people thinking about, like, how do they get outside of the box that they've put themselves in?
We got a couple questions from the audience already and pumping in here. So the first one, at pedal to the page, Teri, your tandem bike journey. I think you already answered this kind of, but bike journey across the U.S. must have been life-changing.
Yeah.
What inspired you to turn those experiences into 10 little rules for double-butted adventure? Thank you, pedal to the page.
Partially. So there's two. One of them is I'm a writer. And so the whole time I kind of knew that I was going to do something. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I kind of felt like this is going to be something that I'm going to write about. You can't ride 3,000 miles on a tandem bicycle and not bring it up.
Right.
Like that would be crazy. But I think what really sparked this idea of lessons was that you can find books out there on, how to ride your bike and all of that. And I didn't want a how-to. I also didn't want a travel log where it was day 1. I figured I did that on my blog. If you want to know what I did on day 7, go look. I mean, it's there. You can't miss it. I wanted to talk about, it changed me. The person that I was when I started the ride and the person that I was when I ended the ride were not the same. I grew. I got rid of angst. I figured stuff out about me. And I thought, that's valuable information. There's things that I really learned that not only helped me on that ride, but continue to help me now. And the number of times I've looked back and said, ooh, I'm not doing number 9 anymore. I need to be working on 9. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, this is why I'm stuck. So.
Definitely. And I see myself doing the same thing with mine. Don't sweat the little things. And I was sweating the little things a lot more.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Don't
we always do that?
Yeah.
You write this great book, you have all the answers, and then you get into your own head again and you completely forget that you had anything wise to say at any time, right?
Yeah, slap myself back to normal again.
Yeah.
The second question that came in was from Mindset Miles. You mentioned life lessons learned along the way. You just answered this too, I think. What was the most unexpected personal growth moment you had on this adventure?
Oh, well, I had so many. But the one that really stands out for me turned into rule number 9, which is never quit on a bad day. So we had gone, it was a long day, and we had to go 70 miles that day. And on a tandem bicycle, pulling a trailer full of your camping gear, 70 miles is a long day. And on that day, we had not 1, not 2, but 3 flat tires.
Oh, wow.
It was very hot. The wind was blowing toward us, which meant that we had to pedal harder just to go into the same distance. We went through a valley with mosquitoes that were so big, and Bruce is a mosquito magnet, and so I was pedaling and swiping, and I think they could have taken us away. In my blog that day, I said something about, I think that the mosquitoes ate the repellent for breakfast.
Oh, wow.
It was just crazy. At the end of this day, we were both wiped out. And I thought, I'm not having any fun. I hate this. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. So I wrote that in my blog. hey guys, we might be calling it a day. We've had wind against us for days. This was miserable. I'm not having any fun. And I had a friend reach out to me and she said, Teri, you've made it across the Rockies on a tandem bicycle. And if you quit now, you have nothing to hang your head about. However, don't quit on a bad day. You'll always wonder if you could have done it. So my recommendation is take a couple of days, take it easy, do something to make yourself have rest, make sure you get plenty of food. And if then you say, I really am done, well, then you can be done and walk away and you don't have to feel bad about it.
Right.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, we made it. So I obviously listened and did not quit. But the number of times that I have said that, we all do things and in the heat of the moment, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Well, do you really want to make a decision when you're tired and hungry and frustrated? And I mean, what a horrible time to make a decision, right? You can't use logical brain. So that's one of my favorite rules.
Definitely. And one of the listeners, Victoria Hines, said, thank you for sharing your exciting adventure.
I know, Vicky.
Looking forward to reading your new book. So that's awesome. So thank you for bringing Victoria over to the Misfit Nation.
Yeah.
Cross pollination of our two shows and our relationship here. So it's awesome to have that. Is Rule 9 your favorite rule? Because you mentioned that right away.
So Rule 9 was my favorite rule. I have a favorite rule now, and the story's a little sad. Are you ready for it? Can you handle a sad? Okay.
You already had one.
On the day that Bruce passed away, I got my author copy of this book. I had wanted him to see it. It was about 45 minutes before he passed. He did not have his eyes open anymore, but I showed it to him anyway, and I told him all about it. And then I crawled up into bed and I put my head on his shoulder and I started to read it out loud to him. And I read the introduction and I read rule number 1 and I read rule number 2. And then I said, rule number 3, do hard things. And he died right then in that moment. And at first, I very much felt like I had given him permission to do something that was going to be very difficult for him, which was be done. Because he doesn't know how to be done. He's always doing. I also, though, realized that he was giving me his last message. Because since then, I have had to do hard things. And sometimes I get up in the morning and what do I want to do? I want to crawl under the bed and stay there. I have no desire to go about doing life because I've lost someone who is so precious to me. And how can I face the day? And then I hear, do hard things. So it's become my mantra right now. It's what gets me out of bed on the mornings. I don't want to get up. It's what has me sit down and talk to people when I think to myself, I don't know that I can do that today. What if I can't? What if I start to cry in public? I don't want to cry in public. All of those things, right?
Right.
And then I just think, do hard things.
Do hard things.
That's my rule number 3 is my new one. It's the one I'm living. That's the thing that propels me forward just about every day.
That's a very strong testament and a very strong story. You got both Cagney and Lacey from the Tuesday crew teared up here. So as Jake said, dang, you just made me tear up a bit. And then his partner, me too. So, you got 2 of them, 2 in one shot. That's awesome.
2 in one shot, yeah.
I can never make them both cry. So that's good. Good and bad, I guess. So are you planning an in-person book tour this time? I know last time you did a lot of digital stuff.
Right. So I'm still doing a lot of digital because it's a great way to get yourself out there in a way that I can't. I mean, even if I wanted to go and do a big tour, I'm just me, like I don't have a publicist and a team and the whole 9 yards. And so I'm going to do more in person than I've ever done before because I'm no longer being a caregiver where I'm needed here at home. So I can go out and do a little more and I will go out and do a little more, but I am also doing a great big digital tour. So I have about 45 days of my launch tour that I just keep putting things out. So it's like, here we are on what day is today? Day number 17 is what today was. Day number 17 of the launch tour. And, that's what I put out about us today. So.
Yeah, I seen today's thing and I kept trying to listen to the sound. I said, why is this thing going, making the heartbeat?
There's no sound. It was just
That's a cruel joke. It's a cruel joke.
Well, you know what I found out on social media, that if I do a little animated clip like that, even with no noise, I get 4 times the hits on it than I do if I don't.
Yep.
It doesn't even need any sound. So I just started doing it, hoping that maybe, it was just little, I can imagine you're like, what is she saying?
I think my phone's broke. Something's wrong here. Nothing's coming out the speakers. I was about to throw my phone out the car. I said, man, it's broke again. Come on.
No. I was just causing you to have a little bit of a day. That's all.
Then I realized I said, Teri just got me.
That's it.
She got me good that time. I know this is a bad question to ask you. Are you working on next year's release already?
So I have something that I'm working on.
Okay.
I haven't been able to write recently. I'm just not in the headspace. I tell people that in order to be creative, you have to, your creativity needs space, and it needs space to play. Right. And right now my head is crammed. It'd be like trying to play in a landmine field. Like I just don't have this space, but I am starting to do more thinking about it. And that's usually a good sign. That's like, okay, so it's coming. I just need, you figure it's only been a month.
Right.
And, grieving takes longer than that. It's a process. And so, but what I'm working on is a book, and I think I may have mentioned it before because I've been working on it, but you have to remember this book kind of came in the middle. So I kind of stopped what I was doing to get this one out because I found the perfect publisher, Little Rules Publishing. And it was like, oh my gosh, my book fits so beautifully there. But I'm writing a humorous book about a woman going through menopause. And it's just the funny look at the fact that you can't remember things, and you get chin hairs and all the things that women can't stand. But it's a kind of tongue in cheek. But I also hope to shed just a little bit of light on the medical community who tends to not listen to women and their issues. We're patted a lot. There. It's just normal. And it's like, wait a minute, there's nothing normal about the way I feel. Right. There's nothing normal about waking up every day and having my hips hurt so bad that I can't get out of bed. And I'm 60, I'm not old enough for this. And you go into the hip specialist and they say, no, your hips are fine. And you're like, something's not right. And so I want to kind of shed a little bit of light on that idea that, not just women, older people are often dismissed. People of color are often dismissed. Poor people are often dismissed. So just that idea of the I'll touch on it, but it's more humor than anything else.
Sometimes a humorous book gets the point across easier than a more serious book, because the reader will stay gripped, or the listener will stay gripped to it. And what's the next anecdote? Oh yeah, I should write that down. That's something I could use.
Right.
My hips hurt today too. Damn it.
Exactly.
So you're going to hit a lot. I think you can hit a wider audience with that one, even wider than you are now.
Yeah.
I think the 10 Little Rules is going to hit a different audience as well than your usual audience. So, and
then I also have a children's book that I hope will be coming out this spring. I have the illustrations are now done. I had a great illustrator, Lori Perini, and I actually have a meeting tomorrow with someone because I'm going to self-publish this one, and that's kind of scary. So I have a friend who's done self-publishing. So I'm going to pick her brain tomorrow and see, I think I know what comes next, but I want to make sure I'm not leaving anything out so that I don't have to redo steps. So my hope is to have that come out in the spring. This book is one that I got the idea while riding across the United States on the tandem, because when you're sitting on the back of the tandem bicycle, you're pedaling, but you don't have to think about a lot of things. And so your mind kind of wanders. And we were on Route 2 pretty much the whole way across the United States. Once we got into Montana, we just were 2 all the way across. And there was a train track that ran right along it too. That's the reason the road exists. And all the towns exist is because of this train. Well, the engineers went back and forth and back and forth. They saw us day after day. And they would wave to us and everything else. And I started to have this idea about different kinds of trains. And so it's a little train that doesn't know what she wants to be when she grows up, but she thinks she wants to be a space train. And all her friends laugh at her. And so she goes and talks to other trains and then decides that she is going to be a space train after all. And what's really cool is right after I wrote it, there was an article about NASA who is wanting to do a train on the moon to move supplies from one side of the moon to the other side of the moon because they're thinking about putting a space station of some kind up there. And I thought, oh my gosh, is that perfect? And so I'm gonna put a little piece of the news at the very back of this book and remind kids that it's okay to dream because you don't really know what might be coming down the pike. Here was a little train that wanted to be a space train and everyone laughed, but now she'll be able to be one. So.
Yes. I mean, if you think about all the science fiction movies that we watched when we were kids, it's all coming to fruition pretty much right now.
Oh yeah.
Many of those things are happening as we speak. And the only thing we haven't seen really is the flying cars, but we've seen some bad.
They're next. I'm sure they're coming.
Bad drivers on the ground. We don't really need them yet.
Yeah.
Got a couple more questions in here. At 2 times hurt, riding tandem requires serious teamwork and communication. How did this experience strengthen or challenge your relationship with your husband?
So I think it did both, but it's overcoming the challenges that do the strengthening. Like you can let it pull you apart. You can argue all the time and let it pull you apart, or you can figure out how to figure it out. Like we learned that I'm sure you've never noticed, I can be very sarcastic.
No.
And so sometimes things will come out of my mouth and I think that I'm being like sarcastically funny, but for someone else, they might not take it that way. And there was a time that I said something that really offended him and he was very angry. And we just had to figure that out where it was like, okay, so this tends to be the way I talk. I will try to limit that. And then you're going to have to try to understand that sometimes, and especially when I'm tired, I'm going to have a little more sarcasm and a little less friendliness. And so we just had to learn. And then we also had to learn to just forgive one another. Okay, so you said that and I didn't like it and I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it. And he has to be able to say, okay, we're going to just, I know you at your core and yeah, you said that and yeah, it wasn't very nice, but that isn't really who you are.
Right.
And so I can forgive that, and so you just have to learn when can you let something go? When do you need to bring it up? And then how do you move past it?
Right. Definitely.
Like when you say, I forgive you, can you really walk past it and forgive them? Or are you still holding on to it? Well, I forgive you. That isn't the same thing, right?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
And that, I'm fine never means I'm fine.
Never fall for it, men. Never fall for that. Fine does not mean that. It means something totally different. So.
Totally different. Exactly.
You'll learn that as you age, I guess, fellas, but I have not learned it yet, but it's coming. I know it. We have another question here.
Oh, awesome.
I just popped it past though. There's Grit Gear. At Grit Gear says, if you could do any part of the ride differently, location, route, etc., what would that be?
I don't know. We learned so much doing what we did. I think where we crossed the Rockies was the best place on a tandem. I think the thing I would have done differently is we pulled a kid trailer, like what you would put kids in pulling on a bicycle.
Okay.
And we carried too much gear. We tried too hard to make it more toury. And we would have been better off having a single-wheeled trailer behind us and been a little lighter in our gear selection. But I was a complete novice. So when I first went, I thought that I was doing great. On day 7, Bruce says to me, I wake up, we're in a motel, and he's already awake and he's looking at me and he says, I think I've made an error in judgment. And I'm thinking, oh, great, we're dead. Like, if he's made an error in judgment, what are we going to do? And he said, I'm carrying too much gear. I think I can send a few things back. Is there anything you feel you can send back? Well, fear gets rid of a lot of things. And we sent 20 pounds of stuff.
Wow.
Back. 10 days later, he said to me, I have a few more things I can send back. And I said, yeah, me too. Experience got rid of another 20 pounds. So we started out carrying 40 pounds of gear more than we needed. And some of our gear was just too heavy. The stuff that we had to keep, we would do things a little differently. So I think that would be the main thing, is that we learned a lot about, like, what do you really need when you're taking on an adventure of that proportion? But
Right.
you don't know until you know.
Until you know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you chose the basically northernmost route across the United States.
So what we actually did, we started in Astoria and we took what they call the Lewis and Clark route. If you go look at, let's see, it's called Adventure Cycling. They have maps all over the United States where you can cycle, and it will show you like where hotels and campsites and all of this are. So we took their Lewis and Clark, which took us over the Lolo Pass. And Lolo Pass takes you into Idaho and up and over the Rockies and then down to Missoula, Montana. So that's kind of where you went over. Then we headed north and got on Route 2, which was called their Northern Tier route. And we took it the whole way across. And so we were always, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 30 miles from Canada.
Wow.
Pretty much the whole way across the United States. Then we went into UP, Michigan. And then from there, we did a lot of little loopy stuff to get ourselves down to DC. We went into Pittsburgh and we did things and went on through. But
I mean,
so I think our route was good.
yeah.
But I think that we probably would have thought more about gear. And if I had to do it again, I don't want to do it again. I've done it once. I don't need to do it twice. But if I had to do it again, I've learned quite a bit about what I really am going to do at the end of every day, which would leave a lot of the gear that I took home.
Right. See?
So,
yeah. So life lessons there, learning ahead. And if you, like you said, you don't want to do it again, but looking back, maybe if you knew people along that route, you could just have stuff strategically placed.
yes, that might have been because we were trying to carry gear for all weather, because the further you went, the more the weather was changing. There are just things that we could have done a little differently. But for instance, I was under the impression that we would get at the end of every day and I would cook a meal and we would have this nice meal. Well, by the end of the day, I'm exhausted. If it can't be cooked in 10 minutes in one pot, we're not eating it. Right? But when we started, I had a couple of different pans and a frying pan and 18 different spices. By the time we ended, I had one frying pan that we had taken the handle off. We had one pan for like boiling water that was a thin pan, thin just for water boiling. And I had salt, pepper, and garlic.
Staples.
That was it. If it needed more than that, then we're not going to have it. And then we found that what we did a lot of times, we would stop at like a grocery store. If you saw that they would have the roasted chickens, and we would grab a roasted chicken and then maybe like potato salad, and we'd throw it into our trailer, get to our campground, eat it straight out of the containers so that you didn't have to do any cleaning up.
Right.
You couldn't save it. So whatever you didn't eat, you had to throw away because we don't have refrigeration. And so you would eat out of the container, throw it away, and get up and go the next morning. I mean, we learned. I thought I was going to do all of this. I don't know what I thought. I was, obviously had no idea what I was getting myself into.
So this would be like almost like a tour bike, and not actually a ride where you ride 3,000 miles.
3,000 miles. It's a long way.
Yes.
And we're going up and over mountain ranges. And we're on a tandem bicycle, and that is not an easy endeavor. There's a lot of weight on a tandem bicycle.
Yes.
You know, and we're pulling a trailer and we have our stuff. And it was, if I had known what I was getting into, I don't know that I would have been as excited to go, but I think that's kind of the definition of adventure. You don't really know what you're getting into.
Right.
You think you do. You don't really have a clue. Yeah.
It's going to be awesome, but I really don't know what's happening around turn 7. Maybe blank on what my next question was. I had it, and then you threw that turn, the not knowing what you don't know question in there, and that's hard enough right there.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, you went across two of the biggest mountain ranges in the United States. You went across the Rockies, and then across the Appalachians. Which one was more beautiful? And I know you're biased where you live now, but
I think when we were going up Lolo Pass, which was a 3-day journey up.
Wow.
I have about 400 pictures from those 3 days.
Wow.
Because we would turn a corner and I would say, "Oh, it's the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." And he would pull over and let me take a picture. And we would go another quarter of a mile and I would say, "Oh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And I did it over and over and over. I have to say that he was so accommodating of me. He's seen a lot of this before, and I had not. I had never been over the Rocky Mountains. I had never seen a lot of this. And so he just seemed to understand that I would see beautiful patches of wildflowers and I would go, and he'd say, "I know, wildflowers." And he'd pull over and get a picture. So, and when you think about him, he's a cyclist. He would do cycle racing. He was doing age group racing right up until he got brain cancer. And so for him, speed, how fast can you get there? And he had to learn to let that go. Yep. We were going to make it across the United States, but he knew that I also needed an experience. And so sometimes we went fast. There were days that we definitely were just plowing through and that was fun. But there were other days where I just needed to experience the beauty. Yep. And so we had to learn, how do you give and take with that too? Because alone, Bruce would have made it in half the time. Because he could have ridden twice as fast and, wouldn't have stopped a bazillion times to take photos. Yes. But he would have had a very different trip.
Right. It wouldn't have been the same adventure. It would have been more of a adventure for him, really, a race. Yes. How fast he could do the 3,000 miles. And that's what he would have been looking at that as the end. As he got to the Iwo Jima monument, as this is my trophy. I got here in X amount of time. I beat what I thought it would do, or beat Google, whatever.
And instead, it was more, we made it, and we did it together.
Yes.
And so I could have never kept up with Bruce on a single bike. If he and I had been on single bikes, I would have been 15 miles behind him he'd be at the campground and I'd have 15 miles to go. It would just have been the way it was. And so putting us on the tandem actually leveled the playing field. He can't leave me in the dust. Right. I'm attached to the bike, so
I'm right here.
I'm right here. We're going to be there together. And I think it was really, that was the right way for us to have done that trip.
You said that you were in the back seat most of the time. Did you ever take the front seat?
Nope. So Bruce he was considered the captain. I was the stoker. I am relatively new to cycling. I mean, I cycled as a kid, up through middle school. But when you're out, and we're on roads most of the time, so we weren't on bicycle paths. We were out on roads, and there's a lot that you have to pay attention to, and a lot that you have to understand and know. And he does that by rote. He's been doing it for so long that it just is second nature to him. Whereas for me, it would have been a very trying, concerning. I don't know what I'm looking for. I can't necessarily know what that car up ahead of me is going to do. And he always knew what that car was going to do. Wow. Just based on how often he's been riding for 60 years. I mean, he knew what that car was going to do. And he would often say to me, we're going to slow down, or we're going to go out toward the middle of the road. We're going to take up our lane right now. This car's coming up. I don't like the way they look. You know, he just knew those things. And so I trusted him implicitly. I wouldn't have taken the front. I don't think he would have let me, but
And you're speaking about knowing what the car and what these vehicles were going to do. Was there ever any close calls for you guys?
Not really. We had a few times that were uncomfortable. We had a construction one time where we had to ride facing traffic. You're supposed to ride with traffic, but
Right.
we had to ride facing the traffic because they had taken out the berm. So we had to be on the other side. That was very disconcerting. One time we were stopped. We were grabbing a snack. We were pulled off the side of the road, but there wasn't a wide spot. There was no one around, and a big truck, pickup truck, came by, and they purposefully went as close to us as they could. And I felt the door of the pickup truck skim my backpack.
Wow.
And then they gave us the finger, and they thought that was really funny. Most people, though, don't do that. And so usually, and part of it was Bruce understood. He could look and tell that that person's going to try to pass us, and it's not going to be safe. So he would pull out into the road, take up more of the lane, so that the person who had to pass us had to really pass us, and they're not going to do it because it's not safe. And so he stopped a lot of bad things from happening, recognizing they're going to try to pass us and it's not safe. So I'm going to make them have to do it in such an unsafe manner that they won't try it. You know?
I mean, that's a great mentality there too. So you're being as safe as you can be and making them have to think twice before
Right.
making it unsafe for you.
Right.
I know riding road bikes just in Clarksville, it's like playing with death. Because
Yeah,
people, it feels like they aim at you, and some of them do. Obviously, like the one that brushed your backpack, but and you can't see all of them on you're on a road bike because you're kind of leaning forward, and it's hard. And with both
Right.
of you,
And you just have to really be thinking. Bruce also had, well, he has his Marine voice, and he would shout. So if he would see a car up ahead that's going to pull out, and sometimes they would pull out in front of us as though we could just stop, not recognizing, well, we're doing 21 miles an hour with a lot of weight. We can't just stop on a dime. And they would go to pull out because when they looked over, we're not a threat to them. And he would let out with this, often would scare me so bad I'd almost fall off the bicycle with the way he screamed. And the person would stop and look, and he'd wave, and we would go right on by. It was kind of like, I'm not going to let you pull out in front of me like that because we'll wreck.
Yes.
We're going to end up in a heap. And so he just was really good at that. He recognized the dangerous spots. Whereas I don't know that I would have been as attuned because I don't have the experience. So it was really good that he was on the front.
He had that control stick. He was like controlling the Love Boat going through the rivers.
Yeah.
It's good. And across the United States, where as we know, many people in the United States believe only about me and not about the we. So it helps to have someone with a strong voice and a strong heart up in front of you there. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad you were able to do this adventure and be with him up until the closing moments, and he got to be there when that book came out. That I think is amazing. It brought tears to the Tuesday Cruise eyes, and they're going to hear about this later. It's they're emotional, I guess. And I mean, I think it's amazing. It's amazing every time I talk to you. I feel like we learn something new, better and better every time about you, and it just makes us want to have you back here for year 5. And you know, the door is always open for you to come back here. Thank you for sharing that. And as we get closer to the close here, you know what we usually do at the end of these? We ask you for 3 tips for the Misfit Nation to do better tomorrow. You can use your rules, or you can come up with your daily things that you do. 3 things that will help our listeners become better people starting tomorrow.
Okay. First thing is throw away your bucket list.
Nice.
Throw it away. Instead, look at that bucket list. Is there something on it that you want to do? And if the answer is yes, put it on your to-do list, and figure out one thing that you can do to start moving toward that. Because like when we rode on the tandem bicycle, we couldn't go the next day. It's not like we made the decision and you can leave, but you can make it, you can decide what you're going to do to start moving in that direction. Because the truth is you do not know if you're ever going to get to a bucket list. Right. You don't want to pass from this earth with a whole list of boy, I wish I could have. And so, I mean, that's really only two things: get rid of your bucket list, and then I guess, I mean, the other, my final thing is go do hard things. You know, go live an adventurous life. Get out of your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be a 3,102 mile bicycle journey, okay? But do something. You know, life is meant to bring you some joy. Not every day, not all day. But overall, what we should be working toward is having some joy. And you're not going to have that happen if you keep doing the same thing day after day after day after day after day after day, wishing that you could do something different. So go do it.
And Teri, what's the best way for the audience to get in contact with you if they want you on their show or if they just want to chat with you?
Definitely reach out to my website, which is my name, Teri M Brown. That's Teri with one R.com. There you can find all my books. If you live in the US, I will send you a signed copy from that site. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can look at my podcast, which I talk to other authors. So if you're trying to figure out what book to read next, it's a great place to look. I have just a contact page that you can reach out to. So pretty much and all my social media is there too. You can just click on the links. So it's easy. That would be the easiest place to go. And then you can figure all the places. So
Jake said, thanks for sharing your story, Teri. Sounds like an amazing adventure. Can't wait to read the book.
Awesome, Jake. Thanks.
Teri, again, this has been great having you on again with the Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation loves having you here and loves hearing your adventures and all your writing. I look forward to the children's book coming out this spring. And of course, once you're back in that writer space, we look forward to the next book coming to fruition and coming out.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rich. I really appreciate it.
You're the best, Teri. You have a great night, and we'll see you on the next time.
All righty.
For every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.